Hello, everybody in the auditorium, everybody that's joining the stream live on our multiple platforms, everybody that's joining us on Discord and everywhere. Welcome to the game review of the University of Tartu Game Jam 2024. Over the course of this weekend, we've had 16 teams come and join us in the Delta building here, as well as over the remote connection. And we've had these teams build a fully functioning game in the span from Friday evening till now, and they've had 48 hours to produce a functioning game from a theme that was for this game jam called Tiny Creatures. Now, very interesting theme in the sense that gives multiple ways of interpreting this, and we will also take a look at exactly what our teams have come up with for that interpretation of the team or of this theme themselves. So let's start jumping into the games here, and let's see what our teams have come up with. So first off, we have Unity, and let's see. So it seems to be a main menu. Takes a while for these buttons to appear. I guess that's options. So we have some audio controls, which is good. Tone those down just a bit in the beginning, but we'll see how this functions. We have exit options, and I guess this is start. So for this game, it would have been a little bit better to make the main menu in terms of the buttons be a solid button in the beginning and over the hover to create that sort of effect that it floats around. So we have some artistic vision to explain the game here a little bit. Let's see. It's a very nicely drawn cartoon, though a little bit of explanation might have helped understand this a little bit more. It seems like this is the main theme and the main character, who's this not exactly solid kind of creature. And we start here at the bottom. So we are always running. So it seems like we need to scale. So jumping is done with space, not the W. So a little bit of control-wise, W would have made sense here as well, the jumping bit at least. So it seems like we need to scale this. Little interesting interaction here. You can hold on to the walls. So you can just hold on to these walls, which is interesting. Don't know if that's intended or not. And then also, let's check. Since there's no instruction on the buttons, we'll see if there's some sort of... Okay. So with G, we become this blob thing. And then we go back to our main form. Okay, very interesting concept. The exit signs are interesting as well. The jumping mechanic is definitely a very quick one, though some of the controls seem to not be working as intended. There is a little bit of bugginess here. So as soon as you jump, there's a little bit of the control here, which makes it a little harder to control the character. I'm not sure if this is intended or not, but the transformation here seems to sometimes fall through the map. get well, we're stuck. We seem to be having a little bit of difficulty with the transformation stuff. I guess that's the particles coming out. Let's see if we can make it till the end of the level. So there seems to be ways of getting around this level as a transformed creature as well. Some of our particles have been found by up above. So a very interesting interaction. I'm not sure if you can... So the vents don't seem to have an effect as per the initial graphics show. Let's see. And we've made it out. We have some, again, nice artistic vision here of the ending credits. Maybe. Let's see. So it was scrolling on its own. We'll go further. So it seems like we're this interesting creature here. And very interesting art choices. So yeah, that seems to be the game, though. So in the end here, we're kind of stuck on the screen, so. So we can't really close the game. So a little bit of ending artwork was nice, but in the end, you would have to have some sort of menu or condition to also return to the main menu for the replayability, because I don't think closing the game via X and then restarting it from the beginning is really a good choice in that sense. So maybe focusing a little bit on the overall game flow of the wall would come in handy. There was overall, so Beyond the Wall was this game. Very interesting design. The artistic choices were great. Though I felt like the level design, in the sense that you have like hand-drawn graphics and then you place a kind of a blocky, standardized, not as stylized graphics for the level design. It could have been a lot more visually whole if it would have had this like a whole artistic vision for the level as well. That was very specific. And also some of the movement was kind of janky, so you could hold on to the walls. So the collisions were interesting, and I think a couple of times in the beginning, when you kind of transformed, you could also fall through the platforms, which is not ideal for a platformer game, especially if that sort of mechanic is there. I think at one point the level was unpassable unless you transformed, but majority of the level was really traversable as a non-transformed entity. So interesting interpretation of the tiny creatures, in the sense that if you transform, you get a lower hitbox, and you get these kind of particles that fly around, though maybe making the puzzle a little bit more focused on that aspect of the small hitbox, and going through some places where the smallness would come into play would have really been a great level design choice there. But let's continue on here with our second game. So just to make sure we have an HTML here. So yeah, we have a web game this time around, made by Godot Engine. This is a two-player game. Unfortunately, I'm here alone, but let's see. So you can, I think, choose between one player or two players. So that's an interesting choice right off the bat. Let's actually go back for a second. So there's functioning audio happening, game design as well, effects. So let's check this. So we have choice of sound effects. But yeah, so there's options to choose. I'm not really sure if this would have any effect on the gameplay as well. This just seems to be cosmetic at this point. So let's see. So I already know the back button works. I pressed it before. W, ASD, and spacebar. Got it. The movement is intuitive. There's definitely some difficulty aspects to this. So a lot of these cogs are moving really fast. But at the same time, can kind of hit them. So I'm not really sure why my score was minus something in the beginning. See if that happens again. So there is time, there's high score, so this is definitely a good replayability factor to this game. You can also squish multiple bugs if you land on multiple of them, which is a nice kind of touch to the game. There also doesn't seem to be any sort of punishment for not squishing any bugs. So let's see. Okay, there we go. So now we have the replayability, so we can go back. Let's check. Again, let's choose a different skin. So the skins don't seem to be having any sort of gameplay effect. It's a nice artistic touch again to the game, and it kind of adds to the value that the game has. But this time around, the score starts at 0, so I'm not sure what happened with the Oh, is it? Okay. Oh. It's a good thing I keep missing everything. Don't get any minus points. So... Oh yeah. So yeah, the Vasps do generate minus points. It's also a nice touch in going towards the minus side of things. And there's some difficulty in different enemies. The squishing factor, it's pretty interesting, but I don't think the hitbox that is made for it. So the indication of a shadows, I think, is the hitbox, but I'm not really sure. So maybe like a little bit game design wise, it has a great replayability factor in the sense that you can beat your high scores multiple times. Though the paw as well as the indication down at the bottom would serve a little bit better if it would show exactly what sort of size it hits. So we have this area here, which I think is the whole area that we can squish stuff in, but the paw doesn't necessarily fill it out. So in that sense, it's kind of a misleading indication. So if we're squishing things with our paw, we would want the paw to have that same sort of effect if it's down on the ground to kind of show that it is the whole area. So it seems like I'm missing some of these, for example, but they do get squished. So a little bit of misleading thing, but again, it doesn't take away from the gameplay necessarily. So a really nice touch in the sense that you can actually, it makes the game a little bit easier to play because you have that visual indication of where exactly you're hitting these things. Also, I think there's a little bit, so once you put the paw down and the enemy flies into it, you also get the minus points, which is an interesting mechanic. So maybe that can be solved in two ways, in my opinion. One of the ways is as you're placing the paw down, you're kind of dissolving the bugs. So once it's down and you lift it back up, you can't get hit by the wasps anymore. Though that definitely makes it more interesting, because as the wasps start flying faster, you can't really judge by putting the paw down anymore, so you get a lot of minus points by the game design wise. But it seems to be artistic-wise, it's very polished. The menu and everything is very fitting of the theme. Also, the tiny creatures was really well kind of done here, in the sense that you do have that kind of a cat that's trying to stop and squish these bugs. So that's definitely an interesting twist on how you can make these tiny creatures as a theme. So all in all, pretty great game. Since it is in the internet, the exit button doesn't work. But yeah, let's continue on with our next game. And let's see, once again, we have the internet link. So we can play it here. Introduction as well. We have some music. Sound effects. Seems to be working. So let's see UI elements here. Credits. We also have how to play. So in the space, respond with R. Just for power-ups, you only have one. Same voice protection, whatever you'll dry out. Okay. Simple enough. The artistic style here in the menu is very uniform, which is great. Let's check how we are in the game. So we are this shrimp creature. Maybe having that in the main menu kind of
Shrimp, please, your soup.
a little bit more in showing what exactly it is we're trying to do. Okay, so we have the platformer. Jumping is interesting, and we
What
have
the shrimp?
Seems like you have to stay in the water in order for
Get here.
to actually make the bar go up, so we can just go in and jump out. Yeah.
Have you seen my shrimp?
And we also have this kind of trying to grab us. We'll see. Pretty straightforward. Well, we have a game design element to jump. So if you fall down, you can't really get back up. Let's see.
What the shrimp?
So interesting. Again, if you're
I won't let
inside
you
the
get
ball,
away.
you can't really get destroyed. So an interesting way of protecting yourself, I guess, if that holds true for every one of these power-ups also. Time them around. Okay, I see. Yeah, an interesting level design aspect of not letting the player go
What is this shrimp doing here?
the other way. We got squished.
Jump is shrimp.
So you can't get squished inside the balls, but you can get squished as you're running around. You pay attention to that. So let's see. We can progress forward here.
What the shrimp?
Seems like this place is, if you're just running, you really can't progress forward there. So you have to actually take a breather somewhere while running around there. Just to let that also.
What the shrimp?
There you have to wait. And it doesn't get triggered one yet when it's going up, so that's also pretty.
I won't
nice.
let you get away.
So it's a very interesting level design-wise. The level design of having the player be forced to use the power-ups as he gets them is
What the
definitely
shrimp?
an interesting way of solving these problems.
What the shrimp? Get here.
this part here is, so you can actually make it there. Multiple ways of dying, which is nice. So you have multiple mechanics at play here, which usually is a very good sign of how the level is made. So
What is this shrimp doing here?
What the shrimp? Get here!
No way this shrimp fried rice.
Design choice. A very nice link into what is now a game winning screen. So this picture conveys a very nice message, but also in here, probably as an artistic choice, you could have made the shrimp. So make it look like you display how basically your main character would look like in this game. So you would know from the get-go how exactly what you're looking for, because we already have the assets here. Having that in the game beginning scene
Shrimp,
as well
please, your soup.
kind of conveys a straightforward point. So I guess you can't really go back to... Interesting. So okay, so the very first point is here. The level design, an interesting
What the
one.
shrimp?
There's definitely kitchen aspects to it, but in terms of artistic direction, having like a kitchen-y sort of background and then bookshelves that's made out of wood is a peculiar one, in the sense that so we have like this what looks to be like a stone or a steel slab here, then we have like bookshelves that are made of wood, so having uniform art design conveyed that we are exactly in a kitchen could have probably done
Please,
some
your
good,
soup.
and that sort of thing. I'm not sure what happened there. There was no indication of what happened. It just kind of jumped out to the sauce bowl and died. So that's usually not a good thing. You want to have when the player does eventually lose. You want there to be some sort of indication. I'm not even sure if this will happen again. Oh yeah, so it's the bar here.
Jump shrimp.
It's going out. So yeah. Okay, so it doesn't reset to 100 when you die, which is an interesting choice, because if you die,
Catch that shrimp.
it would be a better choice to reset that to 100, just to make sure that the player doesn't check this, because you assume you always spawn with your full health, or at least gives a player some sort of indication that
Get here!
she isn't on
Shrimp, please,
full
your
health.
soup.
So definitely interesting design. The artwork's interesting and very nice. Fits the team very well. In terms of if you get caught, you get put back into this bowl, so you're or pot. So you're trying to escape and survive. So that's again has replayability factor. The level design has some interesting choices in the sense that it forces you to use some power-ups. Maybe a little bit of a bigger level and more multiple ways for a player to solve the challenges that he's facing. So multi kind of story or level design. So you won't have just one path to always take, but you can take multiple paths, giving that a little bit of a freedom of choice to platform their way around. So the art style as well inside the game would have been a little bit more uniform, but all in all, the mechanics are good. The platforming aspect works well. And the shrimp focus of being a tiny creature that's also serving a pretty good the artistic design specific focus in relation to the hand that's trying to crush us. So a pretty interesting design and the way it kind of flows together, even though the level design wise it could have been made a little bit more kitchen-y, but still it had some aspects of kitchen there, so that was very nice. So, let's move on to our next game. This was Epic Jammers. Now we have Hapugurgi Purginurk. We have Summer Survival. So, check. So we don't seem to be having any music in the beginning. So I'm not sure how big the volume would be when we get into the game. The art style is nice and clean one. Also, the focus on start being the biggest button and the center of attention. I really like it as a game design choice or UI design choice. it's a really nice way because humans are usually naturally drawn towards the center of the screen. So having that main component be a little bit bigger and a little bit different really draws in the attention to it. So having the color scale a little bit, I can't say a little bit, but having the color scale inverted would do a little bit better because humans naturally look at the brighter elements first. So having this as a bright yellow and the other ones as orange would have drawn even more attention to that start button here. But all in all, it's a very nice design and it's very clean design in terms of the UI. Let's check. We need to kill mosquitoes by clicking on them or swap adjacent tiles. Matches with icons, charge power-ups. So we can get some power-ups, match 4 or more tiles to charge the flamethrower. So let's see. All in all, seems to be that the buttons work. I'm not sure about the settings as it had a slider, but it didn't have any indication of what it exactly does. We have nice match 3, tiles reset. And we can also, similar with the cat game, so we do have one hand and we can squish multiple bugs. So that's nice. And then we have the power-ups. So I'm not sure there's too much you can do here. So seems like, though we're annoyed, there's not really much we can do, so it seems like we can't really connect anything. So let's check. I'm not gonna focus on the screen because this works. Let's check exactly if there's a condition wherein we can't really progress this side anymore. It did look like in the previous game that you can't really do that. So to prolong the game a little bit. So this connect style of games are inherently interesting to make because you need to make a condition where you would have the tiles always be progressible or having to reset the tiles if there's no other matches to be made. So let's see if we can so having the dual kind of mechanics to the game is an interesting twist. So I feel that the design of having those two separate focuses on the game, so it kind of takes away from the whole experiences we're trying to convey here. So you're either focusing on the right side of the screen where you have to pay attention to the squishing of mosquitoes, or you're focusing on the left side of the screen, which is the Connect 3 or Connect 4 sort of gameplay here. So these aspects, since they both require players' attention, they draw away from each other. So you can't really focus on Connect 4 if you're trying to focus on squishing the bugs on the right side of the screen. You can't really focus on squishing the bugs because this requires precision. And in order to get that precision, you need to be focused on the right side of the screen. And then you're kind of drawn away from this Connect 3 or Connect 4 sort of gameplay here. There's that. Also, doesn't seem to be high score sort of scenario. With these blocks, you can make a high score system, which would improve upon the gameplay aspects a lot because you would have the player focus on getting a high score. I don't necessarily get the gameplay here, as in if you're squishing the mosquitoes, you're raising this bar. So if I remember correctly, you're supposed to kill the mosquitoes. So having that sort of aspect where you're kind of going towards losing and also we have currently a bug here, which is not generating the tiles for us. So we can't really even use the left side of the screen. So there seems to be some sort of game generation mechanic bugs, but also, again, the fact that you're working towards a losing sort of scenario by squishing these bugs. It's an interesting choice, but there needs to be some form of way to not have that effect come into play. Because if your game focuses on killing mosquitoes and you're just doing that, you're kind of confusing the players again in general of what exactly they're trying to do. Because I'm inherently trying to win the game, but at the same time, the game is progressively going towards a lose. So either having that sort of system or really clearly conveying on what you need to do in terms of the objective of the game. So if we have a player, so you have kill mosquitoes by clicking on them or swap adjacent tiles, then your objective is to kill mosquitoes. And nothing indicates that when you do that, you're working your way towards a losing streak or a loss, basically. So there's definitely that aspect. And also it seems like in the early generation of the tiles, what can happen is if you already match everything as the game starts, it doesn't reset itself. So it doesn't really bring on the tiles that it should. And thus it kind of bogs out this left side of the screen. So it's not, so it does actually come down into a kind of a buggy way because I can't move any of the tiles to generate a matching situation where new tiles could be generated here. So that's an interesting game, and it seemed to be working in the beginning, but multiple playthroughs seem to be bugging out the system here. Though I like the artistic vision of this game. I would also say that focusing on those two different aspects themselves, so you can either squish the bugs on the right side of the screen or you have this connect three. It's a kind of a clashing mechanic, so the player needs to be really really focused on exactly what he needs to do. And also the power-ups could be auto-activated, at least I believe some of them. So I can see that when you're using the power-ups, you are actually kind of not raising the loss meter. So that's great. But if you have that sort of system where you can squish the bugs, you shouldn't really be working your way towards the loss. All in all, very interesting design. Very interesting. As I said, I like the UI look. It's very clean. But again, swapping those colors to bring even more attention to the start button would have been a nice little touch. But again, that's something that currently doesn't take anything away from the whole kind of UI style. The only comment here is that the start itself has these dots on it, while everything else is a clean, sleek yellow design with no dots. It's an interesting take on it, but again, uniform style usually is better for these sort of games. So you have one specific style which you're trying to convey, and that really helps in kind of pointing the player towards what exactly is it we're trying to achieve here. Or in terms of UI, it's a kind of sense of familiarity between the different aspects of your UI. So yeah, I like this kind of contrasting look, but again, having inverted colors would have been drawn even more attention to the middle. So those are the kind of considerations for this. Even though the game worked really well, other than the kind of few minor bugs where tiles wouldn't get generated in the beginning. So, and also those two clashing mechanics. So let's move on now to the next game. We're gonna have a cheese rush. So we have some music, which is nice. Tutorial. So you can't jump with W again. So you have, so This cat is moving with us. There's also no... So when you fail the tutorial, you seem to be thrown into the main gameplay loop, which is an interesting choice if you're still in the tutorial. There doesn't seem to be any indication of the noise level that you're making. So when exactly are you kind of alerting this cat? So having some sort of noise meter wherein you would have had a graphical display of exactly when the cat would be alerted would be nice. Also, so you can hide behind stuff. So yeah, currently, so there's very interesting design elements here, but again, it doesn't quite. So you have. So all in all, so we do have a little bit of a buggy UI here. So you would usually want to cover the whole screen that your UI is generated over. So now we have this kind of scenario where the picture is getting cut off. So some attention to some of these details to generate UIs is also usually needed in the artistic sense. Because right now it looks like we still have the game, but then also we have the game over. So all in all, it seems like the cat mechanic works great, and there seems to be either checkpoints or I keep getting thrown into a new level. Also, having cat's eyes slightly open here is a little misleading. If the cat's mechanic is one of the main things in the game, you want to have that mechanic be as close to nice as possible, and then alerting it without kind of doing anything. Even though I believe the steps generate noise, but again, having no indication of the amount of noise you're generating, or the sort of stuff that alerts the cat, it becomes very difficult in finding the hiding spots, because if you don't know the level design, which is one of the aspects that the players that are playing don't know, then it becomes very hard for them to realize what's going on and time their stuff perfectly. Also, there seems to be some sort of missing element here, as our mouse usually becomes transparent when it's hiding, but at the same time there's nothing here. So let's see if we can generate enough noise. So now we've alerted the cat. Yeah, so this seems to be a hiding spot, which is an interesting one. I believe it is missing some of the elements that displayed what exactly we were hiding behind. So also having that sort of a place is nice, but you always want to keep it very precise towards the player on what exactly is going on. Maybe having a little less delay between when you're getting killed is also would be a nice choice. And you also seem to be getting spawned in progressively different places. So in terms of level design, maybe that's intended. And you can also hide behind these pillars, which looked like they were solid. So you can't really jump here. So I'm not sure if this is intended or not. Check if we can stand up on them. So we can hide in them. So also for this sort of hiding spot, you would want to have some sort of indication that there's a hiding spot here. So grading a darker shade of box here would convey this message that you have this sort of standable platform, but you also have like this hiding spot. Also, you can just run through them, which is, if you're trying to create a platformer, maybe forcing the player to go up here for this would have been nice. But again, that's kind of if you want to get the score or not. So yeah, I'm not really sure. It seems to be that the level is kind of swapping it around itself. But yeah, the fact that you don't really have any indication of what sort of noise you're making is making these a little bit more difficult than they should be. And you also don't really get any indication of when it's resetting. So it's right now, the cat is being really alert. So again, having this sort of kind of designing guideline in when the player is seen, when exactly it's hidden, and then the cat becomes hidden as well once you hide behind a pole. So in terms of artistic design, now the UI is fixed again, but that really comes down to just play testing the game a couple of times through, seeing exactly how the game behaves in different situations, just to figure out these sort of edge cases and when you can have the sort of things. So it's usually a good idea to give yourself some time in the end to actually play test your game, to figure out these bugs, exactly what can go wrong, so you have a little bit of time to trace those things as well. Even though being a game jam, usually there's very little time to do anything anyway. Having that sort of a playability factor is very crucial in these games, because you want to have as much replayability as possible inside the games there. But definitely the artistic design is a nice one. In terms of the artistic design, it seems to be quite uniform, though it's a lot of different colored aspects here. So making the UI blend in with the rest of the game over scene would have been quite nice. But again, as per I said last game, a light user interface themes draw in the player's attention. So usually the lighter something is, the more easily you're drawn to it. So you're naturally going to tend to look at this sort of box here or this sort of stuff here in the top left. So there's definitely that. Very interesting. All in all, the game works well. The platforming aspect is there. But again, having some sort of indication of what's happening is crucial for the player. So if I'm platforming around, I know that how long I need to wait, or if I can make some more noise to get somewhere, because having no knowledge of the level, I don't really know the hiding spots, especially if there's places that we discovered here where you have a solid block, but I can actually go behind it as well. So having some sort of indication would have done this game a great deal of help. But all in all, I think it's pretty nicely designed. The level seems to be resetting on different sort of spaces. So as we were dying, we were respawning at different locations. So having uniform checkpoint system or starting the level from the beginning is usually the one choice you want to take. So if you want to create a checkpoint, you need to make sure that you're getting reset back to the correct checkpoint, not something that's randomly on the map. So those are kind of the aspects of this game. Overall, though, the movement system feels very snappy, so that's really nice. Right, let's move on and check out. Oops. So very, very fast beginning. The menu itself. Let me start the game again. So the menu itself, the artistic design is fantastic. Having the start be one of the clearest things here does it very nicely in drawing in the attention. Maybe even making it a little bit lighter here, or making the ground a little bit darker would draw in the player's attention very well. But overall, the design is pretty nice. Now, there's no kind of indication of what's about to happen other than maybe this concept art sort of style. So having some sort of guide in exactly what's going to happen would be a little bit better. Also, I believe as soon as I click my mouse, it's going to throw me into the game, even though I'm not clicking on the start itself. Yeah, so as soon as I click it, I get thrown into the game. Now we do have these small things, which seem to have some sort of dash ability here. So an interesting choice in the level design. I like the design of Dark Dungeon sort of theme. Moving around feels very snappy. The only thing is getting kind of stuck when attacking. I would have liked for there to be kind of movement sort of system where you don't get stuck. So you're still doing the attacking animation, but you're also moving around. Also, since you don't have any sort of guides, you're kind of figuring out the button system itself. But all in all, the atmosphere created by the lights and everything is very nice. Collisions seem to be working as well, so we're kind of going around the map here. The critters also seem to be getting stuck on the wall here. And so you also seem to be getting pushed around by these creatures. So it's a very interesting one. I'm not sure if you can one-hit these. Let's check. So you can't necessarily one-hit KO these. So in that sense, having the dash be that fast is an interesting concept. Of course, you do have a dash yourself. I'm not sure if there's any cooldown to that. And also, currently for the kind of design choice of a player attack, it's a very interesting choice to create a bigger one, which is nice. So for the downwards here, we can see exactly where we're hitting. But for the sideways one, maybe creating a kind of a smoother curve in front of the player. So currently it's very drawn out. So maybe creating a bigger arc, but a kind of a more indicative arc in front of the player would be a kind of a little bit better choice here. And then also there's no sort of high score system, and this health bar here seems to be working, at least from what I figured here. Also seems like you can so you can destroy the bugs through the walls as well. So that's something you don't usually want to have in your game, is where you can use the AI system to kind of bug out these situations. So usually want to check if you are able to do anything to the bugs or not. It seems to be like you can almost go inside the wall here, which is also a kind of dangerous thing to have, as it can make the game bug out at some stages, but seems like the collision is working just fine for now, as it's stopping us from going. But yeah, having this sort of thing where you can slash through the wall is not really that good, because you want to create the complexity and the dilemma of kind of slashing around as the player does get stuck. So we do have some sort of boss fight here, and the boss seems to be spawning these extra minions. So yeah, having one sort of dash ability from the small critters would make more sense. Also, there's a factor to consider that whenever a boss is dashing, should make the player have take more damage, but also you want to create some sort of UI element to kind of convey the fact that the boss is going to be dashing. So the small critters in the bush, they're both dashing around, but at the same time you have no indication of when that's happening, so you can't really properly dodge them unless you really pay attention to that. And also having this sort of swarm dash towards you in the beginning is an interesting choice, but also you have to consider the fact that the player needs some time to get used to the controls as soon as the game starts. So maybe not having exactly the attacking interaction for the player being the very first of game could be misleading, because the player's gonna lose instantly. There doesn't seem to be any pause menu here. So there's no way to really get out of the game unless you do get hit. So yeah, the the art is fantastic on these mini screens, and in here you can clearly see that the quit menu is what's drawing in the attention, as everything else is a kind of a darker color. So if we want to force the player to try to restart the game, you would make this restart have that big white box, and it would draw in the attention instantly of a player for it to click on restart rather than the quit. So drawing in the player's attention to certain UI elements is something you want to focus on as well. Because right now the player instantaneously might go here, because usually it's conveyed that the quit is a smaller element of the game, so you don't want player to necessarily quit your game after one game. Overall, I think the mechanics were great. You can have a lot of flexibility with this, but also, as per previous game, you want to have some sort of UI indication for the player of exactly what's going on in the game. So if somebody's dashing, if some attack is happening that's more powerful, we want to have the sense of knowing when it's coming, because we want to have the chance to dodge it. And also at the start of the game, when you are having those sort of interactions, you want to give player at least a little bit of time to get accustomed to the controls and everything that's related to your game. So in that sense, having instantly small critters dashed towards you is going to be a little bit hectic in the beginning for player, which can be also a good design choice, but I don't think it was intended here. So very nicely done there. Moving on, let's take the Great Elf Rebellion and check. So this is with Unity. Overall, great contrast between the play and exit buttons, and here the play button gets drawn out. Even though using red is an interesting choice, because red usually conveys some sort of, it draws human attention because it's kind of color, so that also draws in attention. Being non-uniform can be a design choice, but it has to be conveyed really nicely. In here, it's kind of so. The game is a good one. There's also the end game screen. It seems like the slow motion is in there. You have the try again as well as the back the menu. So in here, stretching the UI for the whole scene would have been a little bit better. Even in the sense that you have this box here in the top left corner. So if you're on your end game screen, you really don't need to convey any more user interface kind of information to the player. So having this sort of panel here while you have another panel open is kind of misleading. So you want to have only one UI element that draws in all the players' attention. And also there's discrepancy between this number here and this number here. So it can be misleading again to the player. So it seems like back to menu works. There are some animations. Also, it doesn't seem like so it's a very colorful one, and the gifts are inside the ground as well. As per usual with the Game Jam games, it's intended features. But here again, really, if you're gonna die in a zero kind of so this is the max number of presence in bag. So this does convey information about our high score. So the colorful atmosphere is nice with the gifts, so there's no misleading elements. So you're naturally drawn towards these colorful elements in your game. So that's a nice touch. Let's see if there's some others. So yeah, there's still some gifts that spawn interestingly. And the fact about this game is that the cursor is not getting locked to the screen. So as soon as I click left mouse button, I get thrown out of the game. So I can't really do anything anymore because the cursor gets thrown into the different screen. So that's something you want to keep in mind as well. A lot of people have multiple monitors these days, so you want to have your cursor be locked to the game. So that also comes with playtesting your game as much as possible, because these sort of things, they can happen as long as you're in your one monitor, but if you have a second monitor, you need to be locking in that cursor. So the AI seems to be following me, which is great, but at the same time, the AI seems to be somewhat faster. So you can't really escape them in that sense, even with sprinting. I'm not really sure how the juking would be done for this sort of game. Again, contrasting red and green is an interesting choice, but then also having this sort of texture be a darker color is not really that noticeable because it has a dark background. So having that sort of text be a lighter color would draw it out even more, and making it kind of more uniform with the UI is also pretty nice. Though this is a very nice low poly style of game, so that's really interesting style choice here. And the level design seems to be pretty interesting as well. So a lot of thought has been put into this level design here. So as before, it was kind of one-dimensional. Now you have that kind of option to have the level be multi kind of dimensional. You could theoretically even create multiple levels in the kind of up and down environment. So there's a lot of level design choices here that could be even expanded on. But overall, right now, the game design is pretty good in terms of the level design and conveying information when you're inside the game. So everything's clear. So you have this presence that you need to collect. You're running around. They're bouncing up and down when you need to collect them. So all of that kind of stuff, it only usually draws in the player's attention and makes it be so that the player knows exactly what he's looking for. Let's see. So I think running... So when you're collecting the gifts, something I notice instantly is if you're sprinting and you're collecting the gifts, you get a lot more movement speed bonus than what you do when you're just running around. So having uniform sort of power-up system is also a great way for the player to know exactly what's happening in the game. Also, the elves seem to be crazy, really crazy fast. And they seem to be getting stuck behind objects as well. So I'm not sure if you can actually juke these elves by going somewhere. So yeah, for example, right now they're all behind the wall. They don't really know what's going on. So what you could do is you could theoretically use your environment here a little bit at least. So yeah, seems like sprinting does a lot of good things as you get more power up. Even having the power-ups be a single sort of thing could be really nice, but at the same time, having to collect these sort of presents over like a couple of seconds also brings in the difficulty element for this game. So overall, pretty nicely made game. You also have the high score system, and the level design is pretty nice. The only part is the UI part, which could be improved upon. This was some of our picks for these game jams. A lot of interesting ideas for all the future developers to check out what to think about when you're making these sort of games in terms of UI and everything. And hopefully it's been an awesome experience for everybody. You've learned a lot of stuff because now you've made some of the games and you know the sort of aspects that are needed for the game making process. But now we will have a chance for the developers themselves to actually display exactly what they made.